hope today's video is going to be a huge wake-up call, a huge inspiration to many of you out there that may be watching this video that have been going through an extremely difficult time manifesting and releasing resistance around a specific person. The story that I'm about to share with you is a reminder to all of you how important it is to get back on track and to have somebody guiding you and holding your hand, because it's so easy for many of us to get off track and to not follow through with the routines that we have created for ourselves over the past months or years. So recently I have been working with one of my regular clients. We came up with a routine maybe about a week, 2 weeks ago for her to follow during the holidays while she's on break. And I cannot tell you what kind of results she has gotten in literally less than 1 week of doing the routine we came up with. So just a quick backstory on this situation with this person that I've been working with. This person that I've been working with one-on-one has been manifesting a person, an old person, and then got rid of the thought and the idea of wanting that old person from doing certain works and meditations, etc. Now she's on to a new person that she was interested in. And this new person that she was interested in, she was getting hot and cold vibes. I'm sure as many of you know that have been in relationships or been in the beginning stages of talking to somebody, you get those hot and cold vibes where you're trying to feel the person out. You really don't know what's going on. And so during this process, she realized that old patterns were coming up because this person that she was currently dealing with, a situation happened recently that had happened in the previous 3 different relationships she dealt with in the past. So her telling me what happened between her and her person currently, then looking back on her history over the past few years, we drew the correlation and we figured out, okay, here's a reoccurring pattern. Why does this pattern keep happening? So with us discussing it together, we talked it out amongst each other. We got to the bottom of exactly where her issues were. I then proceeded to come up with a game plan that I wanted for her to follow. This game plan that I came up with was specifically for her because, as you guys know, as I've stated religiously in all my videos, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to this manifestation stuff. Anybody, any guru, any YouTuber, anybody in the comments that's telling you there's only one way to do this stuff, do not listen to them. There are multiple ways, just as there are multiple dimensions. There's multiple of everything. It's our job to choose which path, whether that's straight, whether that's right, whether that's left, whatever the case may be. It's our job to determine which path we're going to take that is the path of least resistance for us. This is also important to figure out your weak area is, what you have to work on, and not compare what you have to work on, your weak area. Don't compare that to anybody else, because your method of transforming and ascending is probably different than the next person's. So in this situation with this person that I was working with, I specifically told her, don't do these 3 things over here. I only want you to focus on one thing. I want you to focus on that one thing, and I guarantee you, you are going to get amazing results by just focusing on one thing. Something I want you guys to understand about this manifestation process a lot of times is, you've heard this saying before, less is actually more. I could not agree with that more. Less is 100% more, but we are so inundated with all of the information on YouTube around manifestation. We're so inundated with breaking down Neville's works, breaking down Abraham Hicks' works. We turn these manifestation techniques, we turn manifestation into Albert Einstein, E equals MC squared. We turn it into algebra. We turn it into trigonometry. Not understanding this stuff is not a math problem, but for some reason, we as humans, we insist on making it more complicated than it has to be. And this manifesting stuff, less is more. Manifesting is 80-20 rule. Think 80-20 rule, think 90-10 rule. Manifesting is 20% to 10% doing, 80% to 90% waiting. Less is more. So with us talking about her situation and figuring out what she needed to do, what ended up happening is I told her, I said, I only want you to do one thing for this entire week. And I know that's extremely hard for so many people to do, is to just focus on one thing because they think their manifestation is slipping through their fingers. But I want you to understand it's not. You can manifest stuff in your life by doing simply one technique. You don't have to do a bunch of different techniques. You can literally choose one technique, whether that's self-love, whether that's affirmations, whether that's visualizations. You can literally choose one technique and still get all the results you want. Me trying to simplify everything for this person, I told her, I only want you to focus on this one technique for this next week, if not longer, and look at the results you're gonna get. And that one technique was Ho'oponopono. I cannot begin to tell you how powerful this one technique is in order to release resistance, forgiveness, shame, guilt around any area of your life. For those that don't know, a brief summation of Ho'oponopono is there was this guy who was summoned to Hawaii, I believe, a guy by the name of Dr. Hugh Lin. He was summoned to Hawaii. He basically ended up healing an entire mental institution with mental patients. They had to shut the entire prison down because all of the patients got better. They got better because he simply did the Ho'oponopono, which is the technique, as you guys know that have been following my channel and following others' channels that talk about this stuff. The Ho'oponopono technique is simply 4 phrases. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. So what this guy did was he went to the mental institution and he went through all the files of all the patients. He looked at each one individually. He stared at it, he felt it. He looked at it and he said to himself, and he said it as he was looking at the individual patient's records of why they were there, etc. He said, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. What he was doing was he was healing the fact, and he was taking accountability of why did this come up into my experience? I have to take full responsibility, accountability of this coming into my experience. So I'm going to clean it by saying, I'm sorry for whatever the reason is that this has come into my awareness. Please forgive me for whatever the reason is that all of these mental patients have come into my awareness, because I'm taking responsibility of it. I'm not putting the responsibility on these people over here or these people over there. It's my responsibility. I drew it into my awareness, so I'm sorry for that. Please forgive me to my higher self for bringing this into my awareness. Thank you for releasing me. Thank you for understanding. I love you. Pure, unconditional love. He did this for every single patient. Miraculous followed soon after he did that. Patients got better, everybody was healed, they had to shut down the prison. You see, this kind of ties into what Gregg Braden had said in one of my other videos that I talked about, Gregg Braden and Divine Matrix. And one of the key points that I took away from that interview was when he said in that seminar, ask without hidden judgment. Ask without motives. To me, Dr. Hugh Lin, this is exactly what he did. He asked without judgment. He forgave without judgment, forgave without hidden motives. He wasn't trying to do something or blame other people. He 100% took the responsibility and he asked, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And he took the responsibility, which then in turn allowed energy to transmute and to heal those people that he was around and in contact with in the prison. Ho'oponopono is beyond powerful. This story alone is beyond powerful and shows how you can transfer and change people just by taking the accountability yourself and changing yourself. This technique is so powerful. I've used it in my EFT tapping videos, and somebody recently left a comment on that video and said, I noticed you incorporate Ho'oponopono in your EFT. They told me it was extremely smart of me to do that. And I did that intentionally because I knew how powerful it was. And I thought to myself, if I can incorporate this in my EFT, it's going to 10x results. And this is why when so many people do EFT and they do that part, I have so many people tell me how much they cried from doing the EFT, the release that they had, energy that they felt let go, that was trapped in their bodies, getting text messages, getting all sorts of things after they'd done it. And I specifically devoted the whole first day of my EFT 11-day course is dedicated to EFT tapping using Ho'oponopono. Strictly just that. That's day one. Because I understand how powerful EFT tapping is with Ho'oponopono. So I tell people, I don't want you to focus on anything on day one outside of just strictly, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, and forgiving yourself. That sets up the solid foundation. And this is exactly what set up the solid foundation for this young woman that I have been working with. I told her the next week or two, I said, I don't want you to focus on anything else. I want you to visualize. I don't want you to do no SP affirmations. I don't want you to do no script. I don't want you to do anything. All I want you to do is Ho'oponopono. Do it before you go to sleep. Do it when you wake up in the morning. And she listened. And guess what happened next? Miracles happened. She has been texting me nonstop every day with updates because she's in the monthly coaching package, which allows her to text me anytime, at every time, all day. And we stay in contact and I work with her that way. And I also give her FaceTimes and stuff. So she's been texting me nonstop every day, discussing with me all of these things that are happening. And one of the things that happened to her is a key takeaway that I want you guys to take from this video. One of the key takeaways I want you to take from this video is this person was really stuck on an old specific person of hers that she couldn't let go for whatever reason. But through her doing this Ho'oponopono, her old SP contacted her and they spoke on the phone for about 20 minutes roughly. She then went on to explain to me how the conversation was so freeing and that it needed to happen. But here's the key takeaway I want you guys to take away from this conversation. One thing she said to me is the conversation made her realize that he never did anything to her, that they never had an agreement and they were never in a relationship. And and that she realized she was the one that was doing all of the damage to herself. I cannot tell you how freeing it is and how much of a weight, how much of a burden you feel lifted off of your chest, off of your shoulders when you free your specific person from the thought or the fact of they owe me, they were supposed to do X, Y, and Z, it's their fault. Especially when, like in her situation, when they were never even in a relationship. They never had an agreement or whatever the case might have been. Oftentimes I realized quite a long time ago that so many of us, we self-sabotage ourselves and our minds by creating these false assumptions. Our SP is this or our SP is that, or they're supposed to be doing this and they're not. We create these false narratives and these false assumptions when it's not even their responsibility. They were never even on the hook. We might have never even been in a relationship with them, or even if we were in a relationship with them, we're still on some level a lot of times creating a false narrative, a false story of what they're not doing. And we're paying so much attention to what they're not doing versus everything that they actually have done. And we're keeping them on the hook. And by keeping them on the hook, we can never free ourselves because we're making them responsible for our happiness instead of making that our job. The crazy thing is, she told me she specifically set an intention the night prior before going to bed to do Ho'oponopono around this situation and to free it. And literally like 24 hours later, or it might have been 48 hours later, they had the phone call. He called her. She didn't call him. He called her and they were talking. It was a really great conversation. This all happened because she decided to look inward, say, you know what? I take accountability, just like Dr. Hugh Lin did when he went to Hawaii to the mental institution. He took accountability. She decided to take accountability and look in the mirror and said, you know what? I have to tell myself I'm sorry and I forgive myself. And thank you, I love you for being in front of this situation, for attracting this situation and it coming into my experience. It's my fault. It's not his fault. I have to take him off the hook. And so let this be a message to all you watching this video. Take your specific person off the hook. The power of self-guilt, self-shame, self-anything, it's real. Here is a real life example. I'm explaining to you guys on how powerful it is and the things that can happen when you choose to forgive yourself, choose to forgive whoever you might have dealt with, and choose to let go of that and not carry it with you to person after person after person. Because a lot of times in relationships in the 3D world, we carry bitterness, anger, resentment to the next relationship, and we make the next 5 boyfriends or girlfriends pay for the sins of our exes. That is 100% not fair and not right. How you gonna make me pay for something that 6 other dudes did? That ain't got nothing to do with me. How you gonna make her pay for something 6 other women did? That ain't got nothing to do with her. And you know what's even crazy? Her just strictly focusing on this Ho'oponopono for the last week or 2 opened the floodgates, because even her own sibling contacted her and reached out to her, sent her a meme. It was like a sibling meme. It was a pretty funny meme. Her sibling even apologized and said, hey, we don't spend enough time, or we don't talk enough anymore. We really need to talk and get in tune more. And so this is the power of Ho'oponopono when you do it and you release all of that resistance. Also too, she was texting me and telling me her DMs have been flooded. People from her past have been reaching back out to her, admitting to her that, you know, they like her, or they have feelings for her, or they used to have feelings for her, and they're trying to contact her. Somebody even reached out to her and was telling her that they'll fly her out to them. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, wow, all of this happened just from her focusing on one technique, not visualization, not living in the end, Ho'oponopono. Don't ever let anybody tell you not to do nothing else except assume. Don't ever do that. There's multiple manifestation techniques. Find what works for you. If you don't know what works for you, I highly recommend you starting at Ho'oponopono. Also too, one of the main points of this video is to see how her current person that she's talking to and where she almost repeated those old patterns with. The whole point is to show and express how this person also reached back out to her and they communicated on a much better level. And now they're getting ready to go out on a date. As I mentioned earlier in the video, her and this current person, not the old SP, but the current SP, they were getting ready to go through old habits and old patterns that she experienced before. And I told her that we needed to address that. But also, once she addressed it, he reached back out, they started talking again, and apologies were exchanged, or better clarification ended up happening. And she understood where he was, he understood where she was. And going forward, I think they could have a much better solid foundation on a communication basis. What to expect versus what not to expect, because a situation happened where she had got ghosted on a date I told her, did you actually get ghosted? I wanted to get the details of the information, so I explained to her, I said, did you actually get ghosted? When I talked to her on the phone for our weekly session, she expressed to me what really happened, and what really happened were my initial thoughts. Once I heard the full story, I said to myself, she didn't actually get ghosted. It was just a communication thing on her end and his end as well. But I told her, I said, you cannot blame him for ghosting you and what happened with the situation, because it was your fault as well for not following up on if the date was still going to happen. So here's a little side nugget for anybody out there. If you ever have a date scheduled with somebody, always text and confirm the day of, a couple of hours at least before the date happens, to see if the date is still on. Don't just let a day go by or 2 days go by and just show up to the location as if the date is still on, because you're probably gonna end up playing yourself.